All right, all right. I think we are live. I think we're here. I'm just gonna take a minute or so, as I do at the beginning of all of these, to just check the audio and check the video, the quality, and everything. Make sure everything is good before we get going, and then it's all for naught, right? If the quality or the audio's off or something like that, then we're just here wasting time. But anyways, hopefully everything is good here. It has been quite a while since we did a live show here with Let's Talk Television. Where I talk about, TV news, what TV shows I'm checking out, and then usually I'll do a main topic, where I go in, depth, 20, 30 minutes or whatever like that, and kind of, talk about a specific show or a specific piece of news or, just something I'm thinking about, something that's on my mind, anything like that. So, so it's been a little bit. Honestly, I've been kind of busy, and also, as I've said many times with the show already, when there isn't a lot of news to talk about, it's very difficult, to put together a show like this and to do a show when there's not much to talk about, right? So that's the only bad thing about, doing these live shows is that you do kind of need, material for it. You need, to be watching shows that are coming out, and it also has to be a lot of news. And honestly, it's just been kind of a barren wasteland the last, 2 to 3 weeks, I would say. A big one that I didn't cover was the Stranger Things teaser, right, and the release dates and all that stuff. That was probably like the biggest, single thing that I missed here on the channel in the last month or so since I did the last live show. But other than that, not much, man. Not all that much, in at least in my world of what I'm interested in and what I follow. So, anyways, it is what it is. We're back though. We have 5 news topics that I think are really quite interesting this week. Or this show, and we'll go into those, and then obviously the main topic here, and I thought it would be the perfect time because we're about a week into July now, and that is the best and worst, so far of 2025 in TV shows, obviously. So, I think that's an interesting topic to get into here, just thought it was a good time and something to kind of go into, look at, what we've had so far, and yeah, I mean, like I said, this, I guess I'll talk about, but yeah, okay, I'll get into this more when I talk about, TV so far in 2025, but I think we're in a bit of a lull, right? Just to say it short for now, I think we're in a bit of a lull, just right now, in terms of TV. So anyways, okay, so stream's been going for a little bit here. It seems like everything is good. It says we have good connection on the stream here, so that's good. It does look perhaps, kind of a little blurry maybe on my side, but maybe that's just me, so hopefully that's okay as well. And then the audio, testing. Audio looks good as well. We have that all going there. Okay, all right. So let's dive into things then with this week, the show of Let's Talk Television, episode 12 here. So, as I said, the main topic here this week is going to be the best and worst TV shows of 2025 so far. And I will say, I usually start off these shows with this week in TV. So basically, I just talk about the shows that I watched this week in, or last week or last 2 weeks of, any TV shows that I've watched, the episodes of them and stuff like this. I'm going to be completely honest. I have not watched an episode of TV within the last week, week and a half-ish. Anything that I've watched, past that, I don't really remember enough to really talk about and go into. One show in particular that I've missed and I've really, wanted to be watching is Stick, the Owen Wilson golf comedy on Apple. And I think it's almost done its run already, which is insane. I'm not sure if they've been doing 2 episodes a week or something like that, because it has felt very quick, but I think it's on episode 7 or 8 now this week, and it seems like I just missed checking it out. It was the start of June, so yeah, they must be doing 2 a week or something like that, but I just saw that it was on episode 8, and I'm like, what, already? I've already missed that much, so I have not watched a single episode of it yet, and so I do really want to do that. Hopefully hopefully, if I like it enough, I'll try to catch up on it and then maybe do a review of it on the channel, or at the very least, talk about it here on Let's Talk Television next week or whenever the next episode is here. So that's one, but other than that, I have not watched an episode of TV in the last week and a half-ish, and so that's what I want to get into here is 2025 TV so far. To me, it was a really, packed start of the year, right? In 2025, I think I came on here multiple times and I've said, like, there's too many shows right now. Like, this is outrageous. I think at one point it was like 6 or 7 shows. I think it was just the 1 week, but I think there were 7 shows on a Sunday night that I was all watching and trying to keep up with at one point in this year. And then there was, I think, 10 in total, from week to week that I was trying to catch up on and trying to, watch every episode every week of. So it was insane, right? Like, that's just, I don't really remember a time like that. Maybe since, I don't even know, like maybe 2021, even then, maybe not. Like, maybe we're going back to like 2019 on the channel here. I remember, I was doing reviews for like 4 different shows every day, doing like weekly episode reviews of. So maybe that, but it's been a long time. So anyways, really packed in, start to the year. I want to say like January, February, March, and then, going into April a little bit. But then since then, especially with June, the end of May time, we've been in a bit of a lull, to say the least to me. There has just been really no new shows. And even returning shows have been to a very minimum here for me, at least. That's just me. I know that there's been like some shows out there. I know The Bear just came back for season 4, so that's, I guess, a big one. I'm not caught up on The Bear, unfortunately. I'm still making my way through season 2 of that one. And I did really like season 1, but yeah, it just hasn't quite got my attention enough, I guess, to go ahead and catch up with the shows. So that's something I will eventually probably watch, but anyways, just seems like we're in a bit of a lull right now. Everything was jam-packed into the start of the year, but the good news is, I think, the end of the year, or at least kind of the next few months, fall time, starting in August, I would say, and the fall, is shaping up to be really busy again. We have Alien Earth, the It, series, It Welcome to Derry, and, there's a few other ones. Hopefully the Vince Gilligan show, which I'm not going to lie, I'm starting to get just a little bit worried about, because we have not heard really a single thing about that show in quite a long time, and they've already been done filming. It'll be, I think it's almost been a year since they've been done production on it at this point. So anyways, really looking forward to that. What else do we have? We have the new Brad Inglesby HBO series with Mark Ruffalo called Task. Chief of War with Jason Momoa is coming up. I'm actually, really looking forward to that one. So to me, we have like at least a dozen shows, coming up in the fall that I'm very interested in. Another one's the John Wayne Gacy, Peacock series that they're doing. Just saw today that's coming out in October now. So, really, looks like a jam-packed end of the year. So it seems like this summer is just a bit of a lull here. Also, Fallout Season 2 will be coming out in December. Stranger Things, of course, which might just break the damn internet. Might be like the biggest thing since Game of Thrones Season 8. So, yeah, crazy, end to the year here. But right now, we just got to get through it, I think, with this lull that we're in. So, anyways, with all that being said, let us get into a bit of a list, right? So I'm not going to go in, depth or anything. I'm just kind of looking at this document here, which I keep, all year round, basically just tracking every single show I watch. And I really did enjoy doing a tier list for last year of every show I watched, and then, ranking them in a tier list. That was really fun, and so I definitely am going to do that again this year, and this just kind of helps me, keep track of everything that I'm watching. So, I'm going to pick 3 of my best of 2025 so far, and then 3 of my worst from 2025 so far, we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens. I think I have almost 20 shows now, that I've watched so far in 2025. I think it's almost 20 now on this list, And so, I thought 3 and 3 would be fair. I really, to be honest with you, I couldn't think of really more than 3 that I would really consider as worst. And so that's mainly why I'm kind of sticking to 3 there. But anyway, so let's dive into things here, the best and worst of TV. And also, along with the worst, I'll kind of talk a little bit about, maybe disappointments and stuff like that as well. With just how the kind of general trend of TV is going. I will also say this as well, before I get into the best, or maybe we'll start with the worst actually, and then we'll get into the best. But there hasn't been a single show that's, really knocked it out of the park to me. That's really felt like, okay, this is a, definite number one. Like, I'm trying to think back to last year, what did I have as my number one show? I actually do forget. Was it Masters of the Air or, actually I'm gonna take a look at that right now. Cause I'm forgetting what that was last year. But I did kind of have a similar feeling last year where, I really did, let's see here. Okay, yep, right in here, in our tops list. Okay, yep, so Masters of the Air, and then What We Do in the Shadows, House of the Dragon, Sweet Pea and Sugar, right. So, that's how I felt with last year. So it was, Masters of the Air, a very good show, like really good, really, deserving of a number one spot. But, it did come a little bit in below my expectations. What We Do in the Shadows Season 6, it wasn't the best season of Shadows, like I thought it maybe could be. There were some really great moments, but, it's kind of missing the highs of previous seasons. And House of the Dragon Season 2 was kind of disappointing, towards the end of the season. So anyways, there wasn't a clear kind of number one show where I was like, yes, that's it, right there. That's my for sure number one, where I had that for many, many years here on the channel, where I'd basically just every single year it was like off of Better Call Saul or Succession, and Gemstones was up there, and we had some similar shows that were up there every year, and last year was the first year where I didn't feel like that. And now this year is kind of in the same boat to me a little bit. We've had some really good shows, and I'll name a few of them, but none that have really been insane to me so far. So, all right, enough talking, enough going into that stuff. So let's get into it. So let's do the worst. So let's do the worst TV shows of 2025 so far. And I gotta think for a second here on what one I want to say first. So we have. Yeah, so definitely this one. Which one do I want to go into first here? Honestly, you know what? I may be able to name more than 3 now that I think about it, but okay, we'll start with The Walking Dead, Dead City, Season 2. And full transparency here, I have not actually finished the entire season of Dead City Season 2, but that's I think it's still fair, because that's part of the reason I'm talking about it on this list as one of my worst TV shows of the year so far, is mainly the fact that I haven't even gotten to the end yet, that I haven't finished it yet, which is pretty crazy, right? And I will say, this season of Dead City, and I did a little kind of a short video clip there on the channel, where I heard back from a lot of other people who kind of shared the same opinion as me, but I basically titled it, this is getting old, right? Like, the whole Walking Dead universe is kind of getting old at this point. And this, to me, especially the premiere episode of Season 2 of Dead City, was almost the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm going to say it, right? Like, I recognize, obviously, that these spinoffs were not top tier. Obviously, I'm a huge Walking Dead fan. I've put years of my life into the universe, into the story, into these characters. And so I felt like, I was invested. I basically had to finish this thing out. I had to ride it out until the end, where that changed actually for me for the first time, really. I mean, Daryl Season 2 was pretty disappointing, to say the least, for sure. It was one of my worst shows of last year, especially just in terms of, the fact that it was so disappointing. But that didn't even do it for me. Like, this premiere just really kind of set that in of, okay, maybe I don't have to finish this through. Maybe I can just kind of leave this, and maybe I'm done watching, these spin-offs and what this universe has in store. And, maybe I'm going to come back when they do the reunion show with Rick and Daryl and everybody meets up, like the rumors have been kind of talking about lately. Maybe I'll come back for that, but I don't know. Maybe I'm going to be just checked out of the universe for now. So I don't know if that's exactly how I feel yet, but that's the feelings that were starting to kind of creep up after seeing this premiere. Even the next few episodes didn't really change that for me. And like I said, I haven't even, went in and finished the rest of the season. So, and it doesn't help that I've heard some pretty bad things about it too. So yeah, it's just frustrating, mainly in just the way that this season is crafted. Like, I still believe, and I said this with my review for season 1 of Dead City, is that should have been a movie. It was a very self-contained story. And season 2 just feels so forced. Like, just everything about it feels forced. The development for Negan feels forced. The development for Maggie feels forced. Just overall plot line of somehow having Maggie and Negan still in the story together, and, this kind of relationship that they're trying to develop this season with the two of them, it just feels so forced. And, I don't know that any of these spinoffs had felt that forced to me until this premiere hit and the next few episodes. And yeah, it's just, and then it also, right, on top of that, has all the same kind of issues that have been lingering for all these spinoffs so far, and that they kill off all the side characters in all these spinoffs. Our main characters, their names are literally in the title of the show, so they have insane, basically unlimited plot armor in all situations. What else? Too many episodes in some cases, and too little episodes in some cases. The pacing's kind of all over the place. So these things are all still present in this season of Dead City, but then along with the fact that it feels so forced, it just really turned me off. So that is definitely, and you know what, I was actually like pretty excited for this season of Dead City. Probably the most excited I've been since kind of the first spinoff. I think it was Dead City Season 1 that we saw. And I was like pretty excited for that. Kind of, it's new, it's fresh, right? And this was probably the most excited I've been for a season of a spinoff. I guess The Ones Who Live would maybe be higher, but this one I was pretty excited for, and it just really let me down. So that is, one of the more disappointing for sure, and one of the worst TV shows of 2025 so far. And who knows, maybe I finished the season and I'm like, wow, all these people were wrong. I love this, probably not, but there is a chance. And so maybe I'll go back to this and say, yeah, I was an idiot. I shouldn't have spoke too soon on that. But I kind of doubt it. That is kind of what it is. So anyways, Dead City Season 2, definitely on there. Okay, and then, so I was going to say 3, but I guess maybe I have 4 here. We'll have to see. So which one do I want to go next here? Let's go with, so let's go Suits LA, season 1, so the new Suits reboot spin-off type of thing, that they tried to do here, and that's since been canceled. And, I've done quite a few videos actually on this one. I did some videos, at the start of it as it was coming out. I did my review for the pilot episode, and then I did a review, or not a review, but a video kind of discussing the cancellation of the show, and, the real reason why it was canceled, and why it didn't catch on and all this stuff. And I just think this one was flawed from the jump, or not even from the jump, like from the start of development, like not even from the first episode, like from the development of the show. It was just very strange how they really wanted to use the IP of Suits, but not use the IP of Suits, not bring back any of our main, cast in at least main roles. They wanted to do it, and it's, anyways, I've done a lot of discussing about this, so I don't want to repeat myself too much, but Aaron Korsh wanted to get a show off the ground about, I believe it was about agents in LA, and, NBC Universal goes back to him and says, we want a Suit show. And so it's kind of like this compromise where he kind of took that story and those characters and shoehorned them into a Suits world or universe where Harvey and Lewis and Mike and everybody exists. and it just felt very strange right from the get-go. And then along with the fact that, I mean, there's I think it's episode 2 of this of the show here, where I think it's, or is it episode 3 maybe, but anyways, where like the writing is just unbelievable. Like, I don't understand how some of these things made it to the final cut. Obviously there was just issues behind the scenes maybe in the making of it as well. I don't know, but I don't know. I give this a little more credit, though, I think, than some people. I think some people, calling this kind of like a dumpster fire level of disappointing with Suits LA. And a lot of people went into it with kind of those expectations, and so that's kind of what they got out of it. But I do think there were some positives about it. I think Stephen Amell was pretty good in the role. I think the relationship dynamic between, I think it was like Brian and... I can't remember her name. Is it Liz Scott Davis or Alexa Scott Davis or something? The actress, but anyways, her character and the Brian character, I thought were actually a pretty good duo, and that was developing pretty well. I thought Josh McDermott was pretty good too. Like, there were some positives in it, and I thought it was kind of an interesting story, and all this stuff. And I actually thought the pilot was better than quite a lot of people, I think, in my review. It was, relatively positive. But yeah, just, what could have been just a fun kind of, I don't want to, like, not stupid, but, just not high level. Could have just been a fun kind of reboot, bring Harvey back, maybe bring Mike back, Lewis, and let's, see these characters again a few years later. Let's jump back into Suits. And it turns into something that's trying to be different, but still trying to be Suits. It has the name of Suits in it. So it's just very strange, this whole thing that just didn't work out. And what a massive, failure, right? For it was on NBC, right? So just NBC Universal in general, what a failure for them, right? And especially the fact that they canceled it so early on, just speaks volumes to they never really had like that much confidence in this. It appears to be, or it just appears like this just never went the way that anyone involved really wanted it to. And the fact that they canceled it so early on, the way they did, I think it was before even the finale aired for the season. Like, just a massive fail, on basically everyone. I don't really want to blame Aaron Korsh that much, because this was kind of the only way that he was able to get another show on the air, was to do this and make it a Suits story where it wasn't supposed to be. But I also do have to blame him, because he did write those first few episodes, and there are some writing issues in there that you can't really forgive, especially a guy like Aaron Korsh, which I know Suits had some weird plot lines and stuff like this, but he's a really experienced writer, and some of the stuff that was in there was just unforgivable. So anyways, that's what it is. Just an absolute failure, all the way around, basically, on Suits LA. So that's what it is. So that's another one of my worst. And then I think I have 2 more for the worst. So like I said, I was going to say 3, but we're gonna go 4. Okay, so the next one then. This one will be quick. I don't want to go too far into this, and I don't think that it's even that fair, really, to go into this one, but it's going to be Dope Thief on Apple TV Plus, and this was, Brian Tyree Henry's show, along with, what's his name? How am I forgetting his name? Wagner Moura, right? Who played Pablo Escobar in Narcos on Netflix. That's where I know him from, but... yeah, so Dope Thief on Apple TV Plus. Why I say that it's not even really that fair is because it's just so glaringly obvious that there are massive production issues here. I mean, some scenes that, we have actors wearing masks. And this is just a show that comes out in 2025. Right? Like, so that just tells you the fact that, some of this stuff must have been shot in, 2022 at the latest, and most likely, 2021. Right? So that's crazy. 4 years or 3 years in between the shooting of a TV show and the premiere. And this isn't a show like Stranger Things or like Fallout, which has like insane visual effects and all this. Like, no, this is a pretty regular, grounded show. And the fact that it took that long. So, yeah, there was, serious development issues. You can see, I think I watched the first 4 episodes of this one. I think it's like, I want to say episode 2 or 3. But, basically, like, the whole, like, first half of one of these episodes is just, like, so weird. Like, the editing of it, you can just clearly tell that they don't have enough shots or enough coverage of some of these scenes, and so they just kind of like have to edit them out of order, and it just is really jarring to me. Like, it's beyond the point of and I don't want to make it out like it's just a complete mess, because it does work. Like, in some portions of these episodes, it does feel normal. It feels like a normal show. It's just that these things are just there's too many of them, and it happens too often to just kind of dismiss it and be immersed in the show. It takes you out of it, or at least for me. It just took me out of it too much for me to, really seriously continue on with the show. Saying that, though, Brian Tyree Henry is really, really great in this. I mean, he's just so magnetic as our main character. He's just so great. Wagner Moore, I thought, was pretty good, too. I hadn't seen, to the point where I stopped watching it, it wasn't, he didn't have as big of a role in it, because I don't even think he was in like a couple episodes, because that's kind of part of the plot that he was hiding out. And so we didn't see him. So I'm sure that he has a lot of good stuff, in the rest of the series. And there was also some other good performances in the show too. So, I don't want to, discount it as a total mess. It wasn't that, but it is certainly, there are issues there, and some of them are just too glaring to not notice, and it just kind of took me out of it in that way. And, in terms of the actual quality of the show, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like it would have worked as more of like a comedic, spin on this. Like, the whole thing is just such a hilarious, if you don't take it as, face value as a serious thing, the whole thing is a really funny, concept or conceit, right? And I can't remember. It is based off a novel, right? Is that that's correct? It's based off a novel, or is it based off a real story? I can't remember. If it was based off a true story, or it was just a novel. It was based off the novel. Okay, yeah, right. So, anyways, just in terms of like the story, it just seems like a really it just seems like a really funny like conceit. Like, it's just like these two guys go as DA, dress up basically as DA agents. In order to rob, criminals, right? They rob criminals, make them think that they're the DA, they're seizing their drugs and their money, and they have no, connection with the DA, or they are not agents at all. They're just normal criminals who are just robbing other criminals. And so the whole thing of it is that they pull one of these off as DA agents, but then they end up robbing these, like, really serious, high up, drug traffickers, this big kind of drug ring, and they kind of are in way over their head, right? So that, in a comedic sense, could take you really far. Like, that to me, I find that fascinating. I think that would be a really, funny, really concept to play out. But this is dead serious. I mean, there is some, comedic relief with Brian Tyree Henry for sure, but the concept is very serious. Like, that's just the way it's played. And I do wonder if maybe it could have been more interesting, at least to me, in my opinion, if they had taken that kind of comedic spin on it instead. But I do understand it was based off the novel, which, is obviously very serious as well. So, anyways, had some problems with it, but overall, yeah, it was pretty enjoyment, and Brian Tyree Henry's performance, I would say, is almost just worth it in itself to watch the show, because he is amazing in it. So, anyways, that'll just about do it for that one. And then lastly, for our worst TV shows of 2025 so far, going to be The White Lotus, Season 3. And this one maybe is a hot take, I guess. I saw a lot of people, kind of sharing the same opinion. I think I'm a little more negative on it, though, than some people. I think the general consensus maybe is that Yeah, it's probably the worst season of The White Lotus so far. It didn't quite have the highs of the other seasons. It was maybe just a little disappointing. To me, I haven't really found the kind of, I haven't really seen what other people see maybe in White Lotus. I think I did like season 2 a little better than season 1, but I still had some of the same problems. Like, to me, I just don't, I don't know. Like, I just, to me, the show is not that funny, right? Like, I don't think the comedy, although I did think season 3 was maybe the best in terms of actually the comedy. I did think there were some funny moments, but it's not that funny to me. Like, the comedy just doesn't really work that well for me. And then also the social commentary is just not that effective. Like, it's just kind of surface level, and it's kind of the same things at every turn, at every season that we've had so far, and especially season 3. And the one thing that season 3 has that the other 2 seasons don't have is the pacing. Even, the other seasons as well, but this one was definitely the worst in terms of the pacing of just nothing really happening. And it would be one thing if it's kind of this pacing of something like a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Quentin Tarantino or some other films like that are kind of, coined hangout movies, right? Or, maybe something like The Wire, or The Deuce, from David. David Simon really kind of likes that kind of hangout, kind of the environment and the characters, and doesn't really focus on the plot as much, right? And that's fine, right? That's fine if you want to do a show like that. But the problem here is that they try that, but Mike White also tries to set up tension along the way and builds up to these scenes that you think something big is about to happen, and does this, and it just ends up being a red herring basically every single time. And it just gets really repetitive, and it was really frustrating to me, in this season of The White Lotus for it to just kind of keep happening like that, to the point where, I was like, okay, like what's going to happen here? Like, I'm not even on the edge of my seat anymore because, I know that something is probably just going to kind of fizzle this out and nothing's going to come of it, right? And so I thought that was kind of a big issue of this season, along with just the facts, along with the criticisms that I've already had of the other seasons of the show. So, really great performance, obviously. Amy Lou Wood, I thought, was kind of the standout, actually, of this season. Who else? Obviously, Walton Goggins was good, but I don't think they really gave him enough to do here. I think he is better when he can be big, when he can have kind of that energy and really bring something to a role. He's great at that, as Boyd Crowder, Shane Vendrell, maybe Billy on Gemstones, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Like, he's just, to me at least, he's just really good in those kind of bigger roles. And this is like the complete opposite of that. And, he does a great job. I love him in this season. Yeah, I think he's great. But I just would have liked them to give him a little more to do, and at times he's just like very quiet, very reserved. And I get it that that's his character. I just maybe would have liked to see somebody else cast in it then, because I feel like he was kind of wasted at times in this season. Anyways, and who else is in it? Michelle Monaghan, I think, is in it, right? I think it's Michelle Monaghan, and who else? I know I'm missing some names here. Carrie Coon is also in it, and Patrick Schwarzenegger was pretty good. Jason Isaacs. So, is it Parker Kelly who plays the wife? Anyways, so really great cast. I think they all do a good job with what they're given. But yeah, so that was definitely, one of my, again, maybe it's a stretch to call it the worst, because I don't think it was, really bad or anything. Not in the same vein as, Dead City, Dope Thief, and Suits LA. It's a step above all those, but it was definitely disappointing. All right. So now let's talk about some of the best TV shows of 2025. So far. Obviously, right? So far. We got lots of, we got about half a year left, right? Okay. So I have three here. I think three pretty clear ones here. I guess I could throw in, okay. Well, I'll just throw in Long Bright River, the Amanda Seyfried miniseries on Hulu. I thought this one was pretty good. Actually, really kind of exceeded my expectations, and it was just a really good show that you could binge. I remember correctly, this all came out at once, I believe. I hope I'm right on that, because I do think, if you watch it in that way, I think it's really effective. So do want to shout that one out. But anyways, my top three then are going to be, I'll say them in order, I guess. So the number three then is Yellow Jackets Season 3. Now, I did my review on the third season here of Yellow Jackets on the channel. And, I've discussed it a few times, I think, in Let's Talk Television as well. This season was definitely a step up from Season 2 to me, but just, still far behind Season 1 and the stuff that they were able to do there. Just some of it is just kind of retreading on the same issues that I had with Season 2. And we get to points in Season 3 where, they built them up so well in Season 1. And then we're starting to finally get some of this payoff and see some of these moments. Something like Pit Girl comes to mind. I'm not going to spoil it or anything if you haven't seen it yet. But something like that comes to mind, Pit Girl. And it's just a little underwhelming, and that's just kind of what I come back to as, the season went on with Season 3. Some of the deaths also seem just kind of, for no reason. I would have liked to have more development or more of a purpose for some of these deaths that we saw in this season. Definitely more than a lot of the other, or more than last two seasons for sure. So anyways, it was a good season, though. Something I will praise Yellow Jackets for always, even in Season 2, which I thought was a bit of a step down from this season, is it's so unique. I mean, there's multiple episodes this season. Specifically, I think it's episode 7 with the frog catchers. I think it's the episode's called Croak. They're just episodes like that they are able to produce that you do not see anywhere else on TV. And that to me is just such a, valuable, important quality of a TV show, especially these days when, a lot of the shows that I'm not going to talk about here are just in that mid territory. And, I think Yellow Jackets, at times it's kind of frustrating. I think they've, in a way kind of lost the plot a little bit on in terms of like the grander scale of this story and these characters. Unfortunately, with this season, that's kind of what I feel like now. But they're still able to capture some of these moments and some of these sequences, some of these episodes, where it's just like unbelievable, so unique, so interesting, so gripping. These kind of cliffhangers they're really good at as well. And it being sort of kind of, like basically a mystery box show, I think it is really good at some of those elements still, even though maybe some of the grander story points or plot points don't all add up. So, some really great stuff from Yellow Jackets. I have to praise it for that. And like I said, in a time, especially now, in the last couple years, where there's been a lot of kind of mid, this is a show that really stands out, from that kind of field. At least it's unique. Yeah, there's some, falls, failures along the way, but it is unique and it does stand out for sure. So anyways, definitely want to highlight that one. And I'm not sure, by the end of the year that it will be in kind of a top 5 list for me, but so far I do think it deserves number 3 there. All right, number 2 then is going to be Severance Season 2, obviously on Apple TV+. It started out the year, I think this was the second show on my list here, the second show that I watched of this year, and it's right up there. I don't think I'm as positive on Severance, just the show in general, but especially Season 2 as some others. I think it definitely had some pacing issues, some issues along the way with it for sure. I just don't think it quite, lives up to Season 1. I thought some of the payoffs for some of the stuff that they're, finally starting to deliver on here this season are kind of underwhelming, unfortunately. And that's kind of the, biggest, kind of fear you have going into some of these mystery box shows like this is that, okay, are they going to be able to pay this off? And, when we get there, is it going to be satisfying? Do they have something in store for us that's really going to surprise us, or that's really going to, satisfy us, right? And I'm starting to kind of question that a little bit with the ending of Severance Season 2. But having said that, I mean, the acting across the board is amazing. Again, talking about that kind of uniqueness and that kind of quality there, has it in spades, right? Like, Severance is one of the most impressive shows. Just every little detail is just so well planned out, well thought of. The cinematography is really impressive. The direction, I really liked. What's his name now? How am I forgetting his name? But of course, Milchek. Is it Chris Tillman? I'm gonna look that up actually real quick. Because I really don't want to, I don't want to forget that. But it's been a little bit since I've watched. But Tremel Tillman, right? Of course. But he's really great. To me, he's the standout of season 2. He's just really, really awesome. So, yeah, definitely one of the best shows of the year. I think will be probably in my top 5. By the end of the year, we'll have to see. But yeah, just really impressed by it. Like I said, maybe not as high as some other people on it. Some people calling it a masterpiece and, saying it's, easily the best show of the year and stuff like this. I think that's just a little hyperbolic, frankly, for my opinion, but that is what it is. All right, so last but certainly not least, it's my top TV show of the year so far, and big surprise here on the channel, but it's The Righteous Gemstones Season 4, on HBO. So this season, to me, it was probably, I think I said it's the worst season of the show, but that doesn't really say much, right? Because the bar is set so damn high on season 1, 2, and 3, where I think maybe season 3 or 1 is probably my favorite season of the show, or what I would consider the best. And this season falls like just a little short of it. So yeah, maybe it's the worst season of Gemstones, but it's still like really, really good in terms of the overall field of TV, just because Danny McBride and crew have set the bar so damn high with the previous season. So anyways, just really, really enjoyed a lot of season 4. They were a little bit kind of repetitive plot points, and I do understand, fully why Danny McBride and his team, had decided to, wrap things up with season 4 and make it the final season, even though it was kind of, we were kind of led to believe that season 5 was probably going to be the last season. We were going to be getting another season of the show, and it kind of came, less than a month before the premiere of season 4. They're like, nope, that's it, we're done. Season 4 is the last season, and we're going to be moving on. So it is what it is. A really great episode with Bradley Cooper to kick things off. That'll definitely be in my top 10 episodes of the year. Just an amazing, amazing episode. And then there's some other ones, along the way, like I said, sequences, episodes, throughout this season that are just unbelievable. Just, vintage Danny McBride. That, comedy, action, a little bit of drama in there, horror, right? Just so many things that he's able to kind of blend together and create this kind of, perfect match of all these different things. And ultimately, at the end of the day, just make it into a hilarious mix of things that you're watching on screen happen. So, anyways, really liked also the ending of this season. Really thought it all came together well, especially as now what we will know as the final season of the show. So, yeah, this will definitely be in my top 5 TV shows of the year. Maybe it might stay at number 1. We'll see. Hopefully another show can unseat it there. But anyway, so that'll just about do it then, I guess, for our main topic here, the best and worst of 2025 so far. Obviously, from all the shows that I've watched, there are certainly many shows that I probably have not seen yet, or just kind of missed out on this season or this year. So those won't be on my list yet. But anyways, that's what it is. Righteous Gemstones takes the cake as my best TV show of the year so far, and like I said, we'll have to see if that stays like that. So, all right, so we're doing okay for time here. So now let's get into some of our news topics for the show here. Just making sure the stream is all good here and everything's still going well. We talked about all of that. Best and worst. Okay. So, I linked all the articles in the description of this one, as always. So if you want to, follow along with any of these at any time, they should be in the description for sure there. So, first I want to talk about Daryl Dixon, a little bit more of the Walking Dead stuff here. And this news did come, a little bit ago. So this is about a couple weeks now. But I haven't done a show since then, right? So I wanted to still talk about it. So, The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon sets season 3 premiere date, and we get a little bit of a teaser and some photos here on this Deadline article. So they say, Daryl Dixon is heading to Spain in the new season of his eponymous The Walking Dead spinoff, premiering on Sunday, September 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern on AMC and AMC Plus. And then they have the new teaser and the first look photos. So, and I'll try to attach them here in the video here. So September 7th is the premiere date, and this is a little surprising to me. I was expecting something more close to October, like they've been doing. I believe that was last year that Daryl Dixon. I feel like it came out like kind of later October, right? If I'm correct. But anyways, and so this really doesn't leave much of a gap actually between Dead City finishing up. I think it was this week or just last week it finished up. And September 7th, which is about like it's basically about 2 months or maybe like 2 months plus a week or something like that between the two seasons. So that's really interesting and something that they haven't really been able to do, since the original show ended, is have these kind of short gaps that really we're used to with The Walking Dead and Fear. There was constantly seemed like there was always Walking Dead stuff on. So, so they go into some of the, stuff about him in France in the first two seasons. And then, of course, talk about the second season where, Carol comes in, it goes in there about France. And now they're talking about season 3. So season 3 of The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon follows Daryl and Carol as they continue their journey to somehow return home and to the ones they love. As they struggle to find their way back, the path takes them farther astray, leading them through distant lands with ever-changing and unfamiliar conditions as they witness the various effects of the Walker apocalypse. The new season will see 3 new additions to the series' regular cast. We have Eduardo Noriega, Oscar Janeda, and Alexandra Mesenke. Additional cast includes Candela Saita, Hugo Arbois, Greta Fernandez, Gonzalo Buza, Hada Nieto, and Stephen Merchant. So there's some names obviously that obviously it's taking place in Spain. As they did with the first 2 seasons, they're going to have a lot of French actors, as they did there. So now they'll have a lot of Spanish actors, which is really cool, by the way. For them to be giving opportunities to Spanish and French actors, on a big show like this for an American audience is pretty cool. But obviously hearing the name Stephen Merchant is really cool, and I'm really hoping that he'll be kind of the big villain, maybe, in this next season. I really love Stephen Merchant and everything that he's in, basically. So, although he is I've seen him more in some more like kind of comedic kind of turns, obviously. So I wonder how he'll be in this more serious, dramatic role. Really looking forward to it. And maybe there are some more details actually about his role, but this is all the article says here. So pretty cool. And it's kind of a similar way of the way that they cast Kim Coates. I think it's Kim Coates, right? In season 2 of Dead City, right? Having kind of a well-known, kind of bigger name actor come in and play a kind of supporting role in the season, and I think that's really cool that they're doing that, and they should be able to, right? Like, this is The Walking Dead, this is AMC. I think they could, splurge on some bigger names every now and then, and bring some really interesting, actors in who can play a villain or a really good side character. And this is an issue that I've had with all the spin-offs so far. Every season of every spin-off so far is the lack of side characters that we care about or even that last through the season, but by the time the season's done, most of the time, all of these side characters that we've had any, development for or that we've actually started getting attached to are killed off, right? Basically at the point where we start caring about them, they kill them off. So this is something that I think they really should be doing more. And who knows? They might do the exact same thing in season 3 of Daryl Dixon. Probably, right? But anyways, hopefully they start doing this where they can bring in some bigger named actors and have them play a pivotal role in the season, and maybe, I don't know, have them live throughout the season and come back the next season. So I don't know. This has just been an issue, especially with Daryl Dixon season 2. I'm forgetting her name now, but I think it was Clemence Posey is the actress. I'm forgetting her name. But anyways, Daryl's kind of love interest, obviously, in season 2 of Dead City was easily the best character, or side character rather, that they've had in any of these spinoffs so far, in my opinion. I think that was, I think generally people agree with that as well. And the fact that she was killed off, in the way that, especially the way that she was killed off in season 2 was just so annoying, so frustrating, right? And so this is something I really would like to see going forward. So, of course, they kind of share the photos here of some of the stuff in season 3 of Dead City. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we have one of Stephen Merchant, so maybe there actually isn't that many details so far about his character. I'm really hoping that he's in more than like just one episode or something as kind of like a cameo, but maybe that is the case. We'll have to see. Anyways. So, so it does say, obviously David Zabel, the showrunner, is sticking around, and then obviously we have some new writers coming in. So, interesting stuff here. I have to say, after Dead City Season 2, especially that premiere episode, it really kind of gave me this feeling that I really haven't had before with these spin-offs in the universe, and that is, I'm just kind of tired of it. I'm really kind of growing, negative kind of, on the spin-offs and on the universe now. And it's unfortunate, because I really thought, I got to ride this out. I spent so many years of my life, invested in the original series and these characters and these stories and this universe. And the premiere of Dead City really kind of sunk into me. I'm like, yeah, maybe I don't have to do that. Maybe I am just going to kind of check out of the universe for now. So we'll have to see. Obviously, Daryl Dixon in Spain. Okay, it's an interesting, premise, I guess. That's also what we thought about France, right? But it all has to do with the execution here. That's been the problem, especially with Season 2 of Daryl Dixon, and that's been the problem with Dead City, Season 2 for sure, The Ones Who Live even at the end of it. Like, it all comes down to the execution. Yes, can AMC and these showrunners come up with interesting premises? Yeah, Daryl Dixon in France. Okay, how the hell did he get there? That's interesting. Dead City. Maggie and Negan together in a show? Yeah, like, that's crazy. Well, how did that happen, right? Rick and Michonne, we want to see the follow-up to that. How did they, meet each other? How did they find each other again, right? It's always these premises, and then the execution just falls short. So, again, that's what it's going to come down to, I think, for Season 3 of Daryl Dixon. I'll probably check out the premiere, of course, because I'm, caught up on the show. It sounds interesting. Once again, he's in Spain. How does that happen? And it is good to see Carol there as well. It almost seems kind of like almost a reboot of the show in a way because of the whole new cast around them and the new environment that they're going to be in. So it feels good to have Carol with Daryl this time instead of her being absent in season 1. So anyways, September 7th, a little bit of an early premiere date here for Daryl Dixon, really looking kind of forward to this one. We'll have to see how it goes, but I am going to probably check out the premiere there. So love to hear your guys' thoughts, of course, on Daryl Dixon season 3, the premiere date, the teaser, any of the details that we've gotten so far. And if you feel like me, or maybe you're still fully invested in the universe and you're really excited for it, love to hear from you either way. All right. So, that'll just do it then for my thoughts on the Daryl Dixon Season 3 news there. And let me just check the chat here, make sure that we're still going good. Yep, chat looks to be good. All right. Okay, so that's it for the Daryl Dixon story there, and some of the photos here on this article look pretty cool. Some of the comments are pretty funny on these articles, the Deadline article here. So, all right. So, season 3 premiere date, teaser and photos. We got all that stuff. Yeah, awesome. All right, so next up is stuff about Game of Thrones. All right, so this is a very interesting story, and this kind of goes along with stuff I talked about, I think it's now a couple months ago on the channel, and that is that HBO is doing reshoots on the new Game of Thrones show, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. This is an article on winteriscoming.net, very closely focused, in on Game of Thrones, shows, media, just everything about the world there, right? And so I think they do a really good job here. So this news was just kind of inevitable, right? After the video I did, and I think I kind of, titled it of like, what are they doing here, right? Like, what is happening here that a 6-episode, even that I think it was the president of HBO production or something, specifically said that this is a show that we should be able to, easily do a season a year. It's a very easy show to produce. It's very grounded. And, this is something we're really confident that we can kind of, get out, quickly and really, kind of a breezy production on it. We're really excited about it. We're really optimistic about it as well. All these things, and definitely check out my video, right, for more of that stuff, because I literally, I show some of her comments and talk about them, and just talk about the insane hypocrisy here that is clearly going on, I just outright lying, I guess. But anyways, this is inevitable, right? Because we know that it was delayed. It was supposed to be this summer, like almost for sure this summer. I think even George said maybe spring of 2025 at one point. And it is delayed now until 2026, right? So now we get this information where it's like, okay, so that's why, right? That's why this is happening, and there clearly is some issues behind the scenes. So, as the article says, that the prequel was originally going to come out this year, but has been pushed to 2026, as I mentioned. So, it says HBO is working on a new Game of Thrones prequel show, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and then obviously it's, based on the novellas here, Dunk and Egg, and all that stuff. Follows 2 characters, the knight Sir Duncan the Tall and his squire Egg, as they travel around Westeros looking for work and helping those they can, right? So if you are in tune with the story and all that stuff, you know what the show is going to be depicting there. Originally, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms was going to premiere on HBO sometime this year, but we learned not long ago that it was getting pushed back to 2026. That was disappointing. Now, we may have an inkling about why HBO made that choice. According to House of the Dragons, a reliable account that keeps tabs on all things Game of Thrones related, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is currently undergoing reshoots in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Shows do reshoots for all kinds of reasons. The first season of Game of Thrones famously reshot a bunch of stuff before its debut in 2011. That's true, right? I think there was like some recasting, right, in between like the pilot and later episodes. And yeah, there was quite a bit of stuff there, right? In that case, yes, sorry. So they say major actors were swapped out, including the people playing Daenerys and Daenerys Targaryen and Michelle Fairley, which is the actress who played what's her name? Obviously the Starks, Ned Stark's wife, right? Anyway, so I doubt the reshoots for Night of the Seven Kingdoms will go even close to that far. Although right now we don't know what extent HBO is reshooting things. For what it's worth, those who have seen A Night of the Seven Kingdoms ahead of time have given it positive reviews. Martin himself saw rough cuts of all 6 episodes and loved all of them. He's hardly an unbiased observer, but he's also willing to criticize shows within the Game of Thrones universe when he feels it necessary. So I think his enthusiastic endorsement counts for a lot. And this is very true, right? We've seen, as I also covered on the channel, his comments on House of the Dragon and the kind of huge falling out between him and Ryan Condal. Maybe things have changed since then, since I talked about it, but at the time, it sounded like the two of them aren't even on speaking terms. Well, they were like, basically partners on House of the Dragon and really getting it off the ground. And now it sounds like they're not even speaking to each other. So, really interesting stuff there. So they are certainly right there, that it sounds like, George would be willing to criticize it for sure if it had issues. And even maybe more so given the fact that he's been disappointed with how they're handling House of the Dragon, right? So it says, hopefully the reshoots make it as good as it can be. Part of me wonders if they're reshooting things to make it easier to transition into future seasons. We've heard from multiple sources that HBO is already laying the groundwork to adapt more of Martin's novellas, but we'll have to wait to be sure. While we're talking about reshoots, reports that Netflix reshot parts. Oh, okay. So they're talking about The Witcher, reshoots, and that how they've also done reshoots. And that Netflix will probably push that one back as well. So, anyways, some more things to read here on the article, and so definitely check that out if you're interested. I'm not going to go into everything, but yeah. So interesting here. We don't know like a lot of details about the reshoots as they said here in the article. We don't know exactly what they're reshooting or how much they're reshooting, but it feels like it would be quite a bit. At least it has to be somewhat significant in order to push back. Like I said, at one point George said spring of 2025. So this is pushing back, probably, and it's not going to premiere in January, by the way. Like this is probably going to be into February, into March time, right? So and if that's the case, right, that's like 8 months they're pushing this back, or at least 6 months at the very least, that they're pushing back A Night in the Seven Kingdoms. That's quite a long time to push something back, right? Like, that's not just, we need a month or two to kind of polish things up. Like, that's quite a long time. And so that is just really interesting, really concerning, to be honest. That there's pushed back that far, and now we do know that they're doing reshoots. So I'm led to believe, that, with all the information we have, with the fact that they pushed it back so far, that these reshoots are at least somewhat significant, and that, maybe they're choosing to kind of change the story here a little bit. And what's really interesting, too, is the age of the actor who's playing Egg, right? As he's, like, really young. I think he's, like, 10 years old or something. So they've opted to go with a really young actor. And the issue with that is, in a show like this, and this is a part of the reason why the president of HBO was so vocal, that they were going to get a season out a year, is because, the time is kind of limited here with this young kid, unless they're going to be doing massive time skips, but I don't think that's part of the plan, right? Time's kind of limited. Like, this kid's going to grow up. He's going to look a lot different. He's going to hit a growth spurt. And then what do you do, right? And so, yeah, it's just interesting that they went with such a young actor, which it'll be interesting, I think he could do a great job. Nothing against him, obviously, but it's just the fact that, he's going to hit a growth spurt, he's going to look different, and what are you going to do then? Like, that's even more reason to get the show out as soon as possible and to really kind of, expedite the production here on the show to make it feel complete and not something like Stranger Things at this point, where it's just kind of insane that, we haven't had massive time skips in that show, and yet we're still trying to kind of suspend our disbelief that these kids are in high school even, when most of them are, in their like 20s. I think some of them mid-20s at this point. So anyways, that's what it is. That's just a concern. And so I wonder maybe if the reshoots are even that maybe this kid looks even older now. And so maybe they want to try to, get a few more shots or a few more scenes, with him now that he's older looking, since they shot this like months and months ago. I don't know, maybe that could be the case, but that's certainly, I think, something, or at least an element for them that they'll have to consider going forward here. But just overall, really disappointing news that this is getting, pushed. House of the Dragon has been insane. The stuff that we've kind of put up with so far, with the big gap in between season 1 and 2, and then the fact that we didn't even get really a full season with season 2, and now they've like only been in production, I think, a couple months now on season 3. Even only now, right? And season 2 finished like in August or July, I want to say, of last year. So just the fact that HBO is kind of lagging behind so much on this, really, it just boggles the mind. It's really crazy, especially with House of the Dragon and this show too. It's not like you have the excuse of some other shows where they have some huge name actors, even like a Mindhunter comes to mind, right? With David Fincher, like, he's just so busy that he just doesn't, it's so tough for him and the actors who now have, Holt McCallany just has a new show on Netflix, The Waterfront. Jonathan Groff is obviously big. Anna Torv's been in Last of Us and a few other things. Like, there's just a time where these actors kind of blow up. David Fincher's such a massive director. He's constantly working on other films. They just don't really have the time, like, to do another season of Mindhunter where all of their schedules would align. That's not an issue in this case. So I don't even want to give them the benefit of the doubt in that either. So anyways, just really frustrating. Obviously, we'll be there day one when season 3 of House of the Dragon comes out. I'm looking forward to this show as well whenever it comes out in 2026. But I don't know. Just really frustrating so far. And this news just kind of confirms basically of all the stuff that we already, were thinking. But this really is kind of confirming that, yeah, they're doing reshoots on it, and some stuff is happening behind the scenes here on this show. So anyways, love to hear your guys' thoughts on this for sure. On this news, are you still looking forward to A Night of the Seven Kingdoms? What do you think these reshoots are? Do you think they're really significant? Or maybe not, right? Maybe you think this is just a normal thing and the show's fine. We'll have to see, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts nonetheless. All right. So I'll just about do it then for that news of Night of the Seven Kingdoms there. All right, so then let's go on to our next one. And we're going on a little bit here to the time, so we'll go on to the next one here for sure. And this is a Deadline article. All right, so this one is from Deadline here, and this is Duster is canceled by HBO Max after just one season. This is from Deadline here, this article. And they say, after a 5-year build-up, it was a short run for Bad Robot's 1970s crime drama Duster, as HBO Max is not proceeding with a second season of the series from J.J. Abrams and LaToya Morgan. The news comes less than a week after the season 1 finale debuted on the platform. So, I just did, well, no, I guess not just, right, because the season 1 finale debuted, but it seems like it wasn't that long ago. I did a review for I think it was just the premiere episode, or maybe it was the first 2 episodes. Anyways, I'll try to link it here, obviously, on the channel, if you want to check that out. So, yeah, I did my review for it. Either the first episode or the first 2 episodes of Duster here on HBO Max, starring Josh Holloway, and yeah, I thought it was good, I didn't think it was like anything amazing, but I didn't think it was bad. It was in that kind of mid-tier, but then the kind of aesthetic and the style to me brought it a little bit above that mid-tier to me, and thought it was actually, a little unique and definitely worth checking out. At the very least, check out the pilot. I thought it was definitely worth checking out. It was something that, had that kind of flair, that kind of aesthetic, like I said, that energy to it that, some other shows in this genre don't quite have, right? And that kind of 70s style too. I thought they did really well with that. So the article goes on to say, it is not entirely surprising because Duster, starring Josh Holloway and Rachel Hilson, wasn't able to generate a lot of buzz and viewer interest. Those who tuned in largely liked what they saw. Duster is averaging 92% among critics and 83% among general viewers on Rotten Tomatoes. The series from Warner Brothers and Abrams Studio Bad Robot also remains in the daily top 10 on HBO Max, but has not been able to get into the Nielsen top 10 for streaming originals, and barely cracked Luminate's list of top 50 streaming originals in its 4th week at the last number 50 spot. It says, quote, while HBO Max will not be moving forward with the second season of Duster, we are so grateful to have had the chance to work with the amazingly talented co-creators J.J. Abrams and LaToya Morgan, and our partners at Bad Robot and Warner Brothers Television. HBO Max said in a statement to Deadline, we are tremendously proud of this series led by Josh Holloway and Rachel Hilson, and we thank them along with our cast and crew for this incredible collaboration and partnership. So, those quotes are always funny, right? Because it's like, they love working with them, and yet they still canceled the show. So, interesting. But yeah, so those numbers are pretty interesting. I would, obviously it's a streaming show, so it's not like network where we can literally know the ratings and know the viewership. But it is interesting. Yeah, I didn't see a lot of buzz for it, on my review. It didn't seem like it got a whole lot of, traction. I don't think I heard any, people commenting on it or anything. And when I saw the premiere, I think Josh Holloway's name was big. And so some people, obviously J.J. Abrams' name was attached to it. So some people saw it. But yeah, I kind of agree with the article here. I don't think I saw It was a little bit maybe better than what I thought, though, but it wasn't, it wasn't that big kind of swell of interest or buzz around the show. And something that was interesting, too, is that I think this was the first thing that J.J. Abrams wrote, since the Star Wars, the film, in 2019. In terms of like an actual, teleplay or screenplay, he has some other credits on IMDb for other stuff, but this was like the first actual writing thing that he's done since then. And I just thought that was insane. Like, that's crazy that a guy like him went that long without something like that. Obviously, he's, a producer on a lot of stuff, and I'm sure he's, shared his ideas and his thoughts, but not an actual full-on writing credit. So, anyways. And, so obviously it reunited Josh Holloway and Abrams from Lost. That's what the article is saying here. And it was originally ordered in April 2020, so I was not aware of that. It filmed a while ago, so the options on the cast already had expired and were not extended. So that's interesting too. I did not know that information when I, saw the show. Seeing the writing on the wall, I hear Warner Brothers TV and Bad Robot quietly shop Duster to other platforms where the adrenaline-heavy series could have been a better fit, but the effort was unsuccessful. So that's a really interesting thing too, and I'm a little bit surprised by that, to be honest. I thought that this type of show would be good on a Hulu or I guess like a Peacock maybe. Or something like that, even Paramount Plus. That, I think, this show would have been a really great, Paramount Plus, because it really fits in that kind of, macho, stylistic, approach that a lot of those Taylor Sheridan shows have been going on and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think this one actually would have done really well had it been on Paramount Plus. So I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest, that something, maybe didn't transpire there, or maybe they didn't even try. I don't know. Now, the other thing, though, that is very interesting and that I did want to mention here is they say the cancellation leaves The Pit as the only current HBO Max original series. Wow, right? Wow. And so I do think also Hacks, does that not count as a HBO Max original series? So I don't know. Maybe that's an error here that they've made, or maybe they don't count Hacks in this regard, or maybe they're only talking about dramas, because obviously Hacks is a comedy. But anyway, so argument's sake, The Pit and Hacks looks like they are the only original shows that are not based on, IP or, reboots, spin-offs, all this stuff, right? They're the only two now, after Duster has now been canceled because it was an original idea from Abrams and Morgan that worked together on it, and now it's canceled. So that leaves The Pit and Hacks as the only two left on HBO Max as original shows. And I go on and on about this all the time on the channel, how this has been such an issue for the last number of years, but especially now, the lack of original series. And that is something I think I said in my review for Duster, which I appreciated. It's not the most groundbreaking, unique thing I've ever seen, but it has a little bit of that style. There's something to this where it feels a little original. There's something to, just kind of the style, the energy, the aesthetic. It just felt a little new. It felt fresh, even though it's like the 70s, right? But maybe that's just me, living in the time that we're in now and maybe not knowing the 70s. Maybe that's why it felt fresh. But anyways, it did have that feeling to me. And so, and now it gets canceled. It's another one that bites the dust. So, no pun intended maybe. But anyway, so just disappointing, right? Overall, I just would like to see more original series, it's just really frustrating. Obviously The Pit has heard, really good reviews, and so that's, this looks like they're going to be really invested in that show. It is a little derivative, obviously, of stuff like ER and, Grey's Anatomy. Is that correct? Maybe that's a little too like melodrama, but anyways, it's very derivative of a lot of those other shows. Whereas, I think even Duster felt a little more fresh than that. And then obviously Hacks is a really great original series there. So, just really frustrating, really, really terrible news, to be honest, that it leaves only 2 original series on HBO Max. And the fact that HBO Max is supposed to be one of the better, places for original projects, or I guess just HBO in general. Kind of disappointing, that even them are kind of heading in that direction. and this is what I've been saying on the channel, is that Apple TV Plus to me is truly the best place right now for original projects, where they're able to greenlight ideas and projects from, creatives, that once had a spot on every network or in every streaming service, and Apple TV Plus, and maybe HBO as well, but they really seem to be the only ones left at this point, unfortunately. So I guess unless your name is Taylor Sheridan, right, and you're at Paramount Plus, then he gets basically anything greenlit. But a lot of those are derivative too. But anyways, enough said there. Duster is canceled, so it is unfortunate. I did not watch the entire season, by the way. Sorry, I have not reached the finale of the season, so I can't comment on that stuff there. But it is just unfortunate. I thought it was definitely worth covering here, that it was canceled. And yeah, I would have liked to see another season. It sounds like, it was kind of a satisfying conclusion for the end of the first season here of Duster. So at least that's good. At least that's, something, right, that it's still maybe worth watching the first season of, because it doesn't feel like they pulled the rug out from under you at the end. But yeah, unfortunate. I just would have liked to see more of this show, because I do think it had a little bit of that unique flavor and felt a little fresh to me. So anyways, love to hear your guys' thoughts on Duster. If you hadn't seen all of it, if you how you feel about this news, anything like that, love to hear from you guys for sure. All right. So a couple more stories here then, and then we'll end off the show here for Let's Talk Television. All right. So. All right. So this story is about Monster, the series on Netflix by Ryan Murphy. And this article here, it's What's on Netflix, I guess. And this story specifically is actually about Season 4 and the renewal for Season 4 of the show. But it also talks a little bit about Season 3, which I was really not actually that familiar with what they were doing for Season 3. So I just want to go, into that a little bit. And then just, maybe talk about kind of the general, sense and the popularity of Monster as well. So, Monster is renewed for Season 4 at Netflix, and it will cover the Lizzie Borden murders. And so it says the series has been quietly renewed behind the scenes with a plan to shoot later this year. Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan aren't quite done at Netflix. While Season 3 of Monster Anthology has now wrapped filming and is being prepared for release, that season, which came as part of a 2-season renewal, won't be the last, as Netflix has ordered a 4th entry that's due to go into production later this year. By the way, can I just comment on the speed in which the turnaround here that is going on here between production on these seasons? Because if I remember correctly, the Menendez brothers season, right, Season 2, was that just last year? I'm pretty sure, right? I'm pretty sure that was just last year that Season 2 came out. I think it was 2024, right? Yeah, it was 2024. So really quick turnaround here. This is already wrapped filming and it's being prepared for release. So that's most likely going to be this year. And then they're already saying that Season 4 is going to be going into production. So, really, later this year, yeah. So really great turnaround for shows these days. That's pretty unprecedented. That's pretty crazy. So it says sources indicate that the new season will delve much further back in time than previous entries, spanning the late 1800s to cover the Lizzie Borden murders. For those unfamiliar, these murders were the 1892 killings of Andrew and Abby Borden in Fall River, Massachusetts. Both were found brutally hacked to death with a hatchet, Abby upstairs in a guest room and Andrew on the living room sofa. Suspicion quickly fell on Andrew's 32-year-old daughter, Lizzie Borden, who lived in a house and had a tense relationship with her stepmother. Lizzie was arrested and tried for the murders in 1893, but was ultimately acquitted due to a lack of physical evidence and a belief at the time that a woman couldn't commit such a violent crime. So, interesting details there, right? Very interesting. It says this won't be the first time the brutal murders have been brought to screen. There were 3 adaptations throughout the 2010s, including a Lifetime TV movie, 8-episode miniseries, and then there was another movie called Lizzie, apparently, that was made about it. So, it says the anthology series has been far away the most successful Ryan Murphy developed at Netflix during his tenure, and a lucrative overall deal aside from The Watcher. which did get a season 2 renewal order, but has been shelved apparently because Murphy's moved his overall deal back to Disney, where he's developed a multitude of shows across its lineup of channels and streaming services, which we saw with Dr. Odyssey last year, Grotesquerie or whatever it was called. Who was in that? I forget the actress in it, but anyways. Yeah, so those were a couple shows last year, and obviously for Disney, that was on, what was that on? Was that on Hulu, Grotesquerie, I think? And then Dr. Odyssey was on ABC, right? So Disney-owned properties or channels there, right? So obviously they go into the fact that the first season, along with the second season, amazing success, right? It says the first season spent 7 weeks in the Netflix top 10, in addition to still ranking as Netflix's 4th most watched English language series launch of all time. Crazy, right? Okay, so now they talk about season 3. The next entry to release will be Monster Ed Gein or Gein. I don't know how to pronounce that one, but which was previously expected to be released in 2025, although it was still listed on the 2025 roster document for journalists upon its update at Netflix Upfront back in May. Some reports suggest that the new season starring Charlie Hunnam has been pushed back to 2026, but Netflix has declined to comment. So maybe I'll take that back. Maybe this is getting pushed. But if they've already wrapped production, this show, it's a Netflix show. It's not going to be like a big HBO show that needs, a half a year or a year of post-production. Sounds like they could probably get it out by the end of this year. So it says production is set to commence on season 4 as early as September in Los Angeles. So crazy stuff there with the turnaround. And that even leads me to believe, why would you go into production on this season if you're not going to get, this season out in 2025. So I think that it will probably happen, and we will probably see season 3 out this year in 2025. So Charlie Hunnam, I suppose he's playing Ed Gein, or Ed Gein. I've also heard of him, and I think he was, they said he was like a grave robber, right? How he dug up exhumed corpses and stuff like that. So a real, obviously, as the subjects of all the seasons so far. Obviously a despicable human being, and obviously fitting of the title monster. So very interesting stuff. We'll have to see where, season 3 goes. I don't know. I just think this whole, I didn't watch, the first 2 seasons, though I heard a lot about them. I've seen, clips and teasers of obviously the Jeffrey Dahmer season. I think some of this, borders on the territory of just kind of, just kind of trying to capitalize on the names and dramatizing these kind of situations. I guess less with the Menendez stories, right, with those 2 guys, the brothers, but more so with Dahmer, right? Just kind of sensationalizing, these stories and these people, giving them notoriety, right, with having his name, in the title of this show. Now even Ed Gein having his title in the show of season 3. So, again, it's whatever, right? It's whatever. They're obviously very popular, which, says a lot about society, right? We're always going to be interested in serial killers and these types of true crime stories for some reason. And I am too, right? Mindhunter is still one of my, favorite shows of all time. Just really interesting stuff that they go into there. But I do think it's a little bit of a better approach that they take in that show compared to what Ryan Murphy has done so far in this show. So anyways, with all that being said, who cares what I think? Because these continue to be some of the most popular things on Netflix and just in TV in general. So I'm sure season 3 will be right up there, honestly, with that. And season 4, covering the Lizzie Borden murders, is very interesting, and it's going to be really actually fascinating to see how they cover the story, right? With having this woman killer at the center of it and trying to kind of piece together if she was the one, should she have been found guilty, and these kinds of things, and dealing with that of kind of how society has changed, obviously, since 1890, of, them thinking that a woman couldn't commit such a violent crime to today's world, and how are they going to reconcile that? So those are all interesting things. Do I think that Ryan Murphy is the man to do that kind of thing? maybe not, maybe not. But anyways, it is what it is. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it is. So anyways, just some interesting news there about Monster on Netflix and the next couple seasons coming out soon on there. All right, so that'll just do it for that one. And last but not least, I do want to just mention this one as well. And I won't go too far into this one. It's just a Deadline article that Alison Brie is leading FX's witness protection pilot, and David Chase exits the project. So it sounds like David Chase had this pilot. So he said he was previously attached, but has stepped back because he is prepping to shoot a new movie at the top of next year. So that's interesting to me. That's kind of like the main interest basically in this article. It's just the fact that David Chase is shooting a movie and he had to step back from the show, I suppose, that's going to be on FX. So I take it that he was the one who had this project at FX, and it was like this witness protection pilot show that he wrote, or at least he was like a main producer on it. And it sounds like, he's had to step back now. But the interesting thing is, so it was based on a previously unproduced script by Chase, right? So he had, the original concept, right? And it says that it will feature a contemporary take, basically, I guess, on his story, on the original stuff that he came up with. Hannah Fidel and Gina Welch, who are going to be co-showrunners, I suppose. And it says that Fidel will direct the pilot. So yeah, I think Gina Welch, I want to say that I know her from House of the Dragon or one of those shows, just recently that she's been on writing for that. So that's very interesting, an interesting name. And then obviously Alison Brie, to lead the show. I think, obviously she's a big name, and from Glow, Community, it says here in the article. So we'll have to see. I think this is like a pretty serious show, right? And Alison Brie is more maybe associated with the comedy space. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what she's able, to do and what she can bring to this. But I think it's very interesting that we see something from David Chase because, Many Saints of Newark wasn't, that impressive. It was actually really quite disappointing. Some of it was cool, but most of it was disappointing. And so to see him do something else, it sounds like he's doing a movie. Interesting. But the fact that this is based off his script is also very promising. So anyways, just thought I'd bring this up, worth mentioning here, that it's going to be a pilot. I don't think it's even been ordered to series, so we'll have to see what happens with it in terms of the pilot. So anyways, that'll just about do it then for all of the news, for all the stuff that we have to talk about here. We did all of our articles. So we did the Daryl Dixon, the HBO reshoots, Duster, Monster, and the Alison Brie article. We talked about the best and worst of the year so far. Yeah, I think that's all. I think that's it. That's it for this show. So anyways, that'll just about do it then for this week of Let's Talk Television. And like I said off the top, hopefully I'll be back, for next week, or, I think I was doing, basically a bi-weekly kind of thing, right? So one episode every 2 weeks or something like that. So anyways, hopefully I'll be back, sooner than this last time took. And, we'll be able to talk about some new shows. I know Alien Earth is a big one that I'm anticipating, but that's still about a month away. So we'll have to see what comes up and if some other shows kind of excite me. And we'll have to see there. So anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this one. And like I said, we'll see you then when I see you, I guess, with Let's Talk Television again. So really great to get back in the swing of things here for sure, though. So anyways, have a good night, everybody. Just check the live chat one last time. And looks to be all good. Okay, so have a good night, everybody, and take care, and we'll see you then next time for Let's Talk Television episode 13.